Hello and welcome to the channel. I am the Wandering Griot, and the video I have for you today is a bit of a special one with Jabari from the YouTube channel From Nothing, as well as a whole host of other wonderful creators. This collaboration is done in an effort to further educate the world about the untold histories of Black people from across the diaspora. At the end of this video, I'll be linking a playlist where you can watch the other videos in the collaboration. And please, I do urge you to go and check out this content. Trust me, you do not want to miss it. Okay, so when I say the word fantasy, what comes to mind? What image does that put in your head? It is very likely that your mind conjured an image of a knight in shining armor, perhaps a wizard with his voluminous robes, long wooden staff, reminiscent of characters like Merlin or Gandalf the Grey. Perhaps you can even come up with a specific image from a popular TV show or movie, such as Lord of the Rings or, more recently, A Game of Thrones. But regardless of the minor variations between the images that each of you have pictured, there is likely one common factor between all of them. You have likely pictured a scene that is inspired by European cultures and folklore. And well, this is because the majority of films and books, video games in the mainstream fantasy genre are written by people of European descent, as well as being inspired by European culture and mythology. Now, this has led to a consensus that the fantasy genre was invented by those of European descent, or at the very least, the only major contributors to the genre are authors of European descent. So, what I want to do here is to go back and to really investigate this misconception that Africans and people of African descent did not delve into the fantasy genre, or, as I've heard some made the argument recently, that those of African descent did not involve themselves in the fantasy genre. So when we think of the modern fantasy genre today, its roots can be clearly traced back to Tolkien. And while Tolkien does undoubtedly play a major role in shaping the modern fantasy genre, he's not the only ancestor worthy of recognition. So in this video, I would like to take the time to highlight two major figures in not just the fantasy genre, but in literature in general. Now, with that being said, the authors in particular that I would like to focus on are D.O. Fagonwa, and by the way, I am no means an expert on how to pronounce these names, so yeah, I apologize in advance. But I would like to focus on Amos Tutuola and D.O. Fagonwa. Starting in chronological order, D.O. Fagonwa is a Nigerian-born author. He wrote what is widely considered to be the first novel ever to be written in an African language. This book is called The Forest of a Thousand Demons. And though it was first published in 1939, it wouldn't be translated to English until much later, in 1968. The book tells the story of Akara Ogun, a legendary hunter, and someone who is a prototypical fantasy protagonist. Kara is the son of a legendary hunter and a witch, which gives him magical qualities as well as the very practical skills of a hunter and warrior. The story itself follows his adventures through the titular Forest of a Thousand Demons, where he has numerous interactions with spirits from traditional African folklore and so on. This is a book of high adventure, somewhat reminiscent of Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian. This is a novel that is steeped in African culture and traditions, not just in the contents of the narrative, but in the way it's conveyed as well. The story opens with Akaro going as an old man, telling his story to another member of his community in very much the same ways that a griot would. Though Fogoano did receive recognition both within Africa and the greater world, he's still relatively unknown to the Western world. However, he still remains a major influence on African literary traditions. In fact, he was a major influence to the next author I would like to mention. Amos Tutuola is also a Nigerian-born author. He's probably most famous for his work, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. My Life in the Bush of Ghosts tells the story of a young boy who is forced to flee his village, and as a consequence finds himself lost in the bush or wilderness, which is the habitat of spirits and other supernatural entities. Now, while an argument can be made that Tutuola did receive more worldwide acclaim than Fogoano, he still remains relatively unknown to the Western world, at least in a mainstream capacity. That being said, his influence can be seen almost everywhere. This is because the argument can be made that it is Tutuola who is responsible for the creation of what is called the magical realism genre, at least in a literary sense. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with the magical realism genre, you'll be able to see it in the works of the like of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, all the way to Guillermo del Toro. It is a genre that delights in the strange and the fantastical, and treats the more supernatural elements of the world as a natural functioning part of everyday life. In a literary sense, magical realism is noted for its use of beautiful and luxurious prose, of which Tutuola was a master, with his ability to put into words enchanting and otherworldly environments. So guys, these were just two authors that I felt tend to go unnoticed in conversations about literature, especially fantasy literature in the modern day. So please, I would urge you to read their works for yourselves and find out what truly made these two, in my opinion, crucial to the development of the fantasy genre. And again, please do yourselves a favor and check out the other videos in this playlist. Thank you so much for sharing your time, and I hope in the future you will return for more stories from the Wandering Griot. Wow.